Now working within Maya, we're going to be working inside a scene. Now of course the scene is this three-dimensional space that we can see there, and as we're working through, we're either going to be able to save any of our work, we're going to be able to open previous work, and we're also going to be able to start a brand new scene. If we take a look at opening up a scene, all we need to do is go to the File menu, to open scene, and you can see there that we also have a shortcut which is Control and O, and that's kind of standard really across all pieces of software. We also have an option window to open up a scene, so if I take a look, and a lot of the time you're just going to be leaving this at default. You may want to reset the settings as you would in all of the tools before executing the command. One option that you may wish to adjust is the file type. By default it is set to best guess, but we can also be more specific and choose my ASCII only or my binary only. Let's leave it as it is, and if I select open, that's then going to take me through to the scenes folder of the project that I have set, and here you can see I've got a scene file just simply named as file open. Just double click on that, and I now have my scene. I know that it's the correct one based upon the path here, and I'm now able to continue working within this environment. If we've previously been working on a scene and we now want to start a new one, it's very simple. We need to go to the File menu. If I just select that, we have the option for New Scene, shortcut as Control and N, and the option window. Let's just jump into that for a moment. We'll reset the settings and take it back to default. Now by using the default settings, we're going to be using everything that we have here, the default working units. Okay, we've got things to do with the view cube and also default time slider. Now the important option that we do have is we can enable a default scene. So if we want to always open up a particular scene, if it's based on certain settings, we can specify that here. A lot of the time you will find that you'll just start a brand new scene as is, but you do have to be careful that you make sure that your working units are correct for the project, so we can use millimeters, centimeters, meters, etc. That we're working with the correct angular setting, whether degrees or radians, and also that our time is correct, because of course depending on what we're working on and depending on what area of the world we're working within, we will have the option of different frame rates. You can see there that by default it's set to film, but we have a frame rate for PAL, NTSC, we've got the PAL fields, NTSC fields, and also specific timings. Beneath that, the default view cube settings are available. They're discussed in the specific video that concentrates on this view cube. And if I just drag this down a little bit, you can see there that my time slider settings are set to 1 to 24, which means that I'm only going to see 24 frames within my time slider. However, the entire animation length is from frame 1 to frame 48, and we can see that down here within the range slider. At the moment we're only viewing 1 to 24, but we also have another 24 frames available. Just going to leave everything at default, and when I select new, it gives me a brand new scene with nothing inside it. Having constructed some geometry inside the scene, we're going to want to save it so we don't lose anything that we've achieved so far. All we need to do is go to the File menu, and we've got two options for saving. First of all, we have a Save Scene As, and we've also got a Save Scene. Now the Save Scene As is for the first time you save a scene. At the moment you can see that the one that I'm working in is untitled, it hasn't been saved at all. So the best option for me is to say File Save Scene As, go to the option window, and with inside here I'm just going to reset my settings just to make sure they're back to default, and we're just going to take a quick look at a couple of the options. Now really the general options is one that you will change the most. You can see that it's set to my binary at the moment, and if I open that up we have the choice of the ASCII or binary. Now it does depend on the purpose of what you're saving for. The my binary is slightly smaller and it is slightly quicker. However, the ASCII does allow the file to be read within inside Word or within inside Notepad and can therefore actually be adjusted. Using ASCII is always a safe bet because should the file become corrupt, you are able to edit some of the code and hopefully remove any corruption. I'm just going to leave it at the default, however, and leave all of these additional options within inside here as they are. Hitting Save Scene As, what this will do is it will take me into the scenes folder of the project that is current, and I can just save this as File Save as an example. Hit Save As, and now you can see that my scene has been saved in this location with that file name. Now if I was to continue working inside this scene, I've got two options. Either I can save over the work that I've done, and that's fairly easy. All I need to say is File Save Scene, or use Control S. This will override any other saves that have this file name. What I'm able to do is either say File Save As, and then I could save an alternative version, or what I can do is take advantage of the incremental save within inside of Maya. So let's just open up the option window for Save Scene, and you can see inside here that if I select incremental save, what this does is it allows me to just hit Control S all of the time, so it will write over all the work that I've done previously. However, it will create a folder for me with incremental saves, so I can always revert back to previous scenes. I can limit the number of incremental saves just by selecting that and adjusting. I can also add some compression during the save, and I can also preserve the name during compression. Most of the time, you'll just leave the options as this, so incremental save. And what I'm going to do is hit Save Scene and then show you where the folder for the incremental saves is created. So hit Save Scene. Okay, so you can see there's no difference within the file name. However, if I just go and look for the scenes folder of my project B, so here I have my project B, go inside there, and I'm going to go to the scenes folder. Now within the scenes folder, of course, what I expect to see is the file save that I've been working on, so there it is, but I also have an incremental save. If I just jump into that folder, I then have a further folder. So the incremental saves that I've got are specific for this scene. If I was to have an alternative scene file, I'd have an alternative folder for the incremental saves. Jumping inside here, you can see I have file save 0001. Let's just go back to Maya quickly, and what I'm going to do is just move my camera. So I'm just going to bring this round and then hit Control and S. Okay, so I've created a new save. I'm going to move it again, Control S, move it again, Control S. Now all the time I'm just saving over the top of what I had previously, but then if I take a look at the incremental saves, you can now see that I've got file save 2, file save 3, file save 4. So it can be very useful. It means that if you're working and perhaps you make a mistake, or even if Maya crashes and you lose work, you can always resort back to any previous save. Now just regarding any issues that you could have with Maya crashing and your work being lost, if I go to my Windows and Settings, Preferences and Preferences window, okay, remember we're going to go through this Preferences window in an alternative video, but if I go to the File Projects section, you can see that there is an autosave option. By default it's not on, but I'd recommend just ticking that and having it on. Okay, we have the ability to be prompted before it saves, and just like the incremental saves, we can limit it. So by ticking this, we're going to limit the number of autosaves to 10. If you are going to use it, I recommend just keeping that unticked, and then the interval of 10 minutes. Now this again is up to you. It's quite simply how long in between each autosave. 10 minutes, or do you want to leave it longer, or even do it shorter? Finally, the autosave destination, we have the project, which of course makes the most amount of sense. We can specify another folder if we wanted to, or we can use this final option, which is going to base the autosave on the value of the environment variable. Okay, I'd tend to leave it just as project, just so everything again is retained within that organized file structure. Hit save to apply, and we now know that we have the security of not only the incremental saving, but also the autosave.